In the Know, a radio program talking to the newsmakers in Ogle, Lee, DeKalb counties and beyond, keeping you in the know. Here's your host, Charles Van Horn.
Good morning and happy Sunday. Another edition of In the Know. I'm Charles Van Horn, joined by Rochelle Mayor John Bearrows. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing good. Glad to have you here. Busy week in and around Rochelle. A lot of community events winding down for the year. It's been a great summer, really, as summer draws to a close of all sorts of community activities and festivals.
Yeah, festivals, projects going on. It's just been a really busy summer. And, of course, now at this time of year, we're starting into our budget for next year. And so just a lot of activity, a lot of things going on.
A lot of folks with the city working hard, and with that comes new equipment. A lot of things happened at the last city council meeting earlier this week, including the purchase of a new Bobcat and then reallocating the old one.
Yeah, I think that was a very smart move to the water department needed something, and the one that the street department wasn't completely wore out, so we were able to shift that over to the water department and purchase a new one at the street department. So, and I think Tim made a good point last week that the attachments that they have are all interchangeable between those two, so we can kind of share those attachments too.
Yeah, and you're always seeing it out and about, whether it's fixing a water main or doing some sidewalk stuff. It's always out and about digging up holes.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, as we say, there's always something going on. They never have to wonder what they're going to do when they come into work.
Talking about work around the city, there was a debate during the meeting regarding the bid awarding for the downtown stage and bathrooms and that big project, which it seems like with any project of that size, the momentum just isn't there sometimes. You just think, boy, we're out at the gate, we're going to get this thing going, and an entire summer's gone by, and we're finally getting the bid out there. You guys did have to talk a little bit about adjustments because the cost of everything is going up.
Yeah, and the other thing that, to be clear about it, the reason we were held up with this was because this is through a grant through the state of Illinois. A partial of it is funded by the grant, and the grant was held up by the state. So we were late getting that, and anytime there's a grant, you cannot start the project until you receive the first disbursement of money. So we were kind of anxiously awaiting. And the other thing is, you're right. We did have a lot of debate and a lot of ideas from all the various council members. But I think that shows that everybody kind of brings their own opinions and such. But I want to be clear. I don't think anyone was opposed to the project. The only debate was whether or not we should include one more parking lot on 2nd Avenue by the new well house. So that was really what the debate was. Most of it was about was to determine, do we want to spend I think it was $320,000 or something for that parking lot. Obviously some of them felt that maybe we should hold off on it. I had voiced my opinion that, I feel like if we wait, it's only going to get more costly. Plus, you have the people here in town working, doing the project while they've got their equipment here. It's cheaper to do it now than it ever will be. So, but all in all, we agree that we can disagree, but then we call the vote, take the vote, and we move on. And whatever the outcome is, it is. And I thank our council for the open discussion and very, very professional and everybody had their ideas, and it really went well.
And Rochelle city government doesn't always rubber stamp everything. Sometimes people get the impression that city government just goes ahead and does stuff. I have seen things get voted down that were presented well, that were proposals for an expenditure for the city, and they did not go through for one reason or another. So it isn't like by the time it reaches the council, the decision's already been made. Decisions are made at these city council meetings, and that's why the job of that council is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the key thing about people, we've heard that said before that, it looks like you guys just always agree. Well, a lot of times the week before the council meeting, the city manager has a meeting with one-on-one with each council member and myself. And so, if we have questions and they need to adjust the plan a little bit to kind of make everybody happy, it's like when they come to the council meeting, it's not the first time they've seen or talked about this project. So a lot of these things are worked out ahead of time. This particular one here, everyone knew what the project was going in. Everybody knew the cost was overrun as far as the cost for the bids. However, the only thing that we really started a discussion about was at the council meeting, they threw up the fact that potentially we could hold off on doing that one parking lot. Mm-hmm. So I think excluding that one parking lot, everybody was on board for the project, but it was just that one parking lot. And, I feel that, like I say, it's only going to get more costly as time goes on.
And that new parking lot's like 36 spaces or something there along the railroad tracks. And one of the points raised was, well, is that overflow parking ever used? But the other side of the coin was parking just doesn't magically appear. And you have to have it in place for businesses and other things to thrive and economic opportunity. You do have to have places for people to keep their cars, especially because Rochelle, as much as you'd like to be a walking city, it truly isn't a walking city yet. You don't have dense enough residential area in the downtown.
Yeah, and the real thing with that parking lot is, in my opinion, we have we have the thrift shop down there, we have the bar/restaurant on the corner, we have apartments above the bar, we have another auto repair shop on 2nd Avenue. So there's, I think those people deserve to have a nice parking lot for their customers. As we said, a lot of times they would pull off the side. There's not even curb down there, and it's kind of gravel, and it just really needs to be addressed, and I'm just happy to see that we're going to move forward with that.
And it'll probably be occupied by train spotters anytime soon.
Very well could be. You never know. Once again, that's another big advantage. We draw people for our train spotting and watching and videotaping from all over the country. It's amazing how many people visit there just to watch trains.
Yeah. Other things that came up in the council meeting this week, of course, a bunch of proclamations to things. You guys do proclamations all the time. How much does the city spend on picture frames each year? I'm just curious.
I really don't have any idea, but I would say we always try to recognize various things that are extremely important. One of the things was they were all four important last night. But one of the things that's very important is the Hope of Ogle County, the Domestic Violence Month. And, as I said, every month is Domestic Violence Month. I mean, it's something we just can't tolerate. The other thing is the VFW, they're celebrating 125th anniversary September 29th. So, that's a big milestone in what they do for our veterans. Public Power Week, that's another big thing for us because we own our own power company. And we're very fortunate here as local residents, as you well know, comparing our bills to other companies' bills. Our residents really fare very well on the rates. And then, of course, Fire Prevention Week. If you heard the proclamation Monday night was, a lot about lithium-ion batteries, that the storage and the disposal of them and various things really makes you think. You don't really pay attention to it too much because we kind of become oblivious to it. But it made me stop and think, how many things do I have that have those types of batteries, and how do you overcharge them? All of us, we plug our phones in and we really don't think about it.
You hope for the best.
Yeah. And just kind of a wake-up call to pay attention to those things. And that's our job, is to make sure that we provide information to keep our residents safe.
Let's go back to public power. There was a move made to allow large consumers of electricity, not your residential customers, not your small mom and pop shops, large electric consumers to go shopping outside of Rochelle for their electric needs. Now, the part about this is the scale and the numbers. If you can sort of lay out, like, a little bit, if you can, like, what types of businesses would be considering this, and how many are in Rochelle right now? Well,
actually, right now there are none. The closest that we would have would be CHS, which uses roughly 10 megawatts a day, ballpark. And this M1 ordinance regarding the large user is, I think it was 13 megawatts and above. So, we really don't have anything right currently. But also, you got to remember, if we start looking at perhaps data centers, perhaps various big user companies. If we land, we're set for it. We have the ordinance in place that they can go out and shop much like they do. Back even several years ago, I remember Nicor would reach out and or various companies would reach out and say, hey, you can shop your gas rates from us. So this is the same type of thing, but they have to be a large user. I believe it was 13 megawatts and above per day, and that's a lot of power.
And so this is basically just another sort of way to entice a large consumer of electricity to the area. You can be like, look, we have our own power company. You can certainly buy from us, but if need be, you can look for better rates outside, but we still want you in the city, right?
Yeah, it's another tool in our toolbox as we're talking to a new company. Many times they come in and in a redevelopment agreement, or they talk about what can you do for us with power if we come here and various things. Hey, what we can do is what can you do for yourself? If you think you can shop better power rates, have at it. And this just takes a little bit of weight off of us and gives the consumer or the new company another option.
And Blake mentioned one thing which I think is a facet of this that I don't think a lot of people even recognize or understand is there is only so much power available coming into the city.
Right.
And when you guys hit that upper threshold, then some big infrastructure has to change because the wires are only so big.
We can only transmit an additional 75 megawatts, roughly 75 megawatts a day into the city. So if you think about that, if you have a data center come in here that takes 50 megawatts, now all of a sudden we're down to 25. And you look at CHS, and when you talk about, I say only 25, if you look at CHS, which uses roughly 10 megawatts a day, that's a big high-end power user for us. So we could still have another company, but the limiting factor ultimately is the transmission lines coming in. We can only get so much power. It's kind of like I was in a meeting with Blake at one point and said, the easy way to explain it is if I have a 4-inch line feeding a 3/4-inch garden hose, I'm only going to get the amount of water that comes through a 3/4-inch garden hose, and that's really what it is.
Yeah, and this is one of those things in regards to the hope of a data center or the hope of another large-scale electric user. Talked about that for a couple of years now. If you were to look into the crystal ball, what do you think? Or are you talking 5 years, 10 years, next week? I mean, because you talk about this a lot, but at some point people are going to be like asking, well, when will something like this be announced or show up?
Well, currently, as we speak, there are talks going on with various data centers about coming to Rochelle. I think one of the things that may play a part of this, there's legislation pending. Well, it's not pending, but it came before and didn't pass. But they're going to try to limit the data centers to 50 megawatts of power per day. So any requirement over the 50 megawatts would have to be produced by themselves, whether that be a natural gas turbine, whether it be wind, solar, nuclear. Small nuclear plants now are coming on the horizon. So I think it's just kind of their data centers already looking here, but there's some things about the power side of it that I think still have to be worked out, and that's kind of the limiting factor, really.
So for the people of Rochelle, the future could involve a data center.
Certainly could.
The advantage of that is obviously the tax base, and if they use utilities from Rochelle, that helps everybody reduce the utility bills, in theory, because they're contributing to maximizing the potential of everything. Drawback is number of jobs. I mean, a data center will not have as many jobs as a factory, a manufacturer of things like that.
Well, and to be very clear, if we get a data center, we still have enough power available to bring more businesses. The great thing about a data center is, as you said, it's a great tax base, not a tremendous amount of jobs. So the tax base helps the schools without any direct impact on the schools. So hopefully that would be a big plus for our school system.
Mayor John Bearrows, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And people in Rochelle, they can leave the lights on still? don't have to worry about conserving electricity just yet.
Yep, absolutely. But I will say, as we close, don't forget that they need to look at, it's a little late now for this year to make a difference, but next year, we have the Power Saver program.
Yeah.
And that's an extremely important money saver for residents. If you use less power from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 7 o'clock at night, I use it myself, and I notice a difference in my bill. But during that time, you don't wash clothes. We have our air conditioner set when it's hot. We have our air conditioner set on a schedule so that during that 2 to 7, it does not run like it does the rest of the time. So it's something really important to look into next summer.
All right, Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this week's In the Know. The program returns next week at this time with another great conversation with someone from your community.